There's Just Something About Kansas City is brought to you by the generosity of our friends with the Haverty family, the Illig family, the Kearney Warnell Foundation, UMB Bank trustee, the Sherman family, the Cockrell family, Kansas City Orthopedic Institute, Don and Mary Doherty, and the Bergman family. Thank you.
Folks, welcome once again to another episode of There's Just Something About Kansas City, where we talk about the people, places, and things that make this such a great place to live. Don't forget, get us anywhere you get your podcast. Like, listen, subscribe. And this is a great one to watch on YouTube because we are there as well. We are sitting in the bowels of Arrowhead Stadium with Mike Davidson, who is the Chiefs historian, and we are in the Chiefs Hall of Honor. And this place is incredible. Mike, and welcome, and thanks for taking time, because I know how busy as you start to gear up for the season, how busy this place is going to be with visitors, right?
Well, thank you, Frank, and good to see you again.
Yeah.
Been a while.
Long time friends.
You look great.
I've known you for a long time.
You look great as usual. Thank you. And obviously this is the Chiefs Hall of Honor, and it's about 14,000 square feet of museum space. And we tell the story of Lamar Hunt, the American Football League, and all the accomplishments that Lamar did to get to how we know professional football today. So it's a very nice space, and look forward to showing you some of the things that we have.
Yeah, I can't wait. But we're gonna learn a little bit about you first, okay? So, I know you hate to talk about yourself. I talked to Bob Moore about you, of course, and Bobby is also instrumental in the Hall of Honor for a lot of historical things with Bob too. So, yeah, he was.
Bob and Michael McCambridge back in 2008. Really, they were instrumental in the original Hall of Honor, which was in the same location that we have right here. And Bob and Michael, unbelievable work that they did. Mm-hmm. They started literally from nothing and started piecing it together. And so we had the original space that was here. And then in 2021, we dismantled the original space and had construction done where what you see now opened in September of 2021.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
It's a very nice space,
it's just spectacular. Like I said, we'll get into that. But for you, you have a very interesting story about how you got here. Okay, you're from Ohio. Okay, Mentor, Ohio, the Mentor, Ohio Cardinals. Ohio. That's right, Northeastern Ohio. You played high school football at Mentor, did you not?
I was third string everything. So no, yeah, I did. Played Mentor Cardinals and went to Bowling Green. And the football career was over, but I remember asking my older brother, he told me, he said, when you get to college, get involved with something, and there's music and arts and things like that, but I kind of like sports, so I literally, I saw the day I went to Bowling Green, that evening at dinner, I saw Frank Pascalone, who was a freshman playing football, and he played at Cleveland St. Joseph's, and I had known Frank, and he said, hey, you ought to just come out and work for the football team out here too, and that kind of thing. So anyway, long story short, I ended up working in the equipment department as a student manager, realizing I couldn't play football anymore.
Right,
at
Bowling Green.
At Bowling Green, and worked for a gentleman by the name of Glenn Sharp. Little did I know, but Glenn was one of the most respected equipment managers at any level, and worked for Glenn, and I enjoyed it. Probably enjoyed that more than I did school. But Glenn made us.
That sounds familiar.
Yeah, and Glenn made us keep a grade point average. That was important to him.
Oh wow, that's awesome.
He didn't pay us, so it was all volunteer.
Sure.
And realized that you can make a living doing it, and graduated from Bowling Green and did teach school for 6 years.
Stowe. Right?
And Stowe, and then Painesville Harvey High School also. And at Harvey, I took care of the equipment for the school system.
Did you coach there at all?
I didn't coach.
You didn't coach,
no.
Okay.
No, strictly doing the equipment
You're
there for 'em.
doing the same deal.
And the Cleveland Browns had training camp near my home, about a mile and a half from my house. And one summer I started helping them at training camp. And
while you were
while I was
in
teaching.
high school?
And then, long story short, they ended up asking me if I wanted to become a full-time assistant equipment manager. And so I enjoyed teaching. I thought it was great. but I decided, I'll give this a shot. And at that time, Sam Riccigliano was our head coach. We had an assistant coach on the team by the name of Marty Schottenheimer. Marty was our defensive backs coach and also our defensive coordinator. And then halfway through the 1984 season, we weren't playing real well, and the owner made a coaching change, and Marty became our head coach halfway through the 1984 season, and was our coach in Cleveland then for the next 4 years.
Yeah.
And then after the 1988 season, Marty left Cleveland and became the head coach here in Kansas City. We were all very disappointed that Marty was leaving Cleveland because he was absolutely a great boss.
Yeah, he actually got fired,
Great
right?
boss.
For all practical purposes.
Yeah.
I think it was a mutual agreement, but they were going to let him go.
Yeah. But they separated, and Lamar Hunt hired him here in Kansas City, and we were all really disappointed. Marty was not going to be our coach in Cleveland anymore. But he got here, and there was some changes going on here.
And you probably thought at that time, before we get to the Marty and then the Kansas City transition, you probably thought you were staying on with Cleveland, right? At that time, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. I didn't think I would move at all.
Sure.
And, but then Marty got here, and there were some changes going on here, and that's when he called me up and said, "I'd like you to come here and be the equipment manager here." So in 1989, I did come here and as the equipment manager, which I did for 22 years.
Yeah, that's right, which is just, that's awesome work with. And that, the job, you might think, wow, they get to go, they fly in a plane with the team, and they go to all these games. They're equipment managers. You guys, I never envied you guys. I was on those trips as well. And the old media's in there, and we're in the locker rooms in those days, and we're going, and you guys are always pushing the baskets. You're going from locker to locker and getting the stuff, and we're doing the interviews, and they're trying to pack everything up and get it back on the plane and get it home. And you guys just, you guys work, 7 days a week, the whole season for all practical purposes, and just, long hours of the day,
and as you know, it's not a one-man show at all.
No, it's
a
not.
one-person show,
No.
I should say. It's, with the assistants that, with Alan Wright and Chris Shropshire, and just go through Kyle Crumbaugh and Darren Kearns and Albert Vaitia and that we've had here, and on and on. Just it's a team. It's a team within a team, and a lot of hours, a lot of work. But,
absolutely.
Yeah, it wasn't bad.
Yeah, right. And now they're starting to recognize managers, assistant coaches, whatever. Talk about the committee you're on with the Pro Football Hall of Fame. I think this is very interesting, and then we'll get into Lamar, and we'll just talk about the NFL.
So I think it was in 2020, David Baker, who was running the Pro Football Hall of Fame in Canton, Ohio, him and a gentleman by the name of Mike Ornstein came up with an idea that the support staff people, the behind-the-scenes people, should be recognized. They thought it'd be important that they should be recognized at the Pro Football Hall of Fame in Canton, Ohio. So it would include assistant coaches, athletic trainers, video, public relations, and then the equipment managers. And so had a committee going where I'm on the committee for the equipment managers,
right? And
we've been inducting now. We've gone 4 years where we'll induct 5 equipment managers, and now we're down to 3 every year. It's quite an honor, and we don't get into this profession for those honors. Okay?
Right, I know.
And really, it's very nice that the Pro Football Hall of Fame supports that. The support staff and the assistant coaches and the public relations people. And again, it's not necessary, but it is a nice little honor. So at the end of June, they have a nice little ceremony, and there's a wall in the Pro Football Hall of Fame that lists the names of those that are inducted each year. So it's an honor to be on that committee. And again, we don't do it for recognition, but the fact that the Pro Football Hall of Fame would like to do this for us. It's an honor for a lot of people that are behind the scenes.
Sure. There'll be PR people involved in this. They'll be, probably put in there as well. And
they are. Public relations people are in there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Public relations, assistant coaches, athletic trainers, equipment managers, and the video department. So it's.
I think that's pretty
nice.
cool.
It's very nice.
Yeah.
It's a very nice event that they hold.
Yeah, and it's great because nobody realizes how hard you guys really work. I know you don't want any praise for it, but I'll say it because I know you won't. You'll be in there someday.
No, I
You'll
don't
be
know
up on
about
that
that.
wall,
Yeah,
so
no.
you will be.
There's-
Believe me, there'll be a lot of people coming down from Mentor, Ohio, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, wherever your relatives are scattered for to be there for when that happens to Mike Davidson.
It's a very nice honor to be on the
Yeah.
committee, but it's nice to be able to have
Yeah.
these people recognized. So
All right, let's talk about this franchise. So you arrive in 88.
89.
89, and you with Marty and Carl, and things really start to turn around because for almost 20 years before that, there wasn't a whole lot going on here. Okay, they were really going through some tough times, and it really stabilized this franchise when Carl and Marty came in here. From back way in the day when Hank was here and Lamar first started with the old AFC. But what did you know about Kansas City before you got here?
Coming to Kansas City as a visiting team was always nice. Always enjoyed it because, first of all, it wasn't very complicated. You know, the airport to the stadium or downtown was no traffic problems, things like that. And the stadium was always beautiful. I always remember coming in to the stadium, coming down the tunnel and seeing all the names on the Ring of Honor. Always enjoyed coming here. Had a little bit of Kansas City Chiefs interest because Len Dawson was from Alliance, Ohio. And when I was growing up, the American Football League was kind of in my wheelhouse of being early teens, and followed the Chiefs because of Len Dawson, because he was not far from where we were all from. And so I had an interest in the Chiefs anyway, as being a Cleveland Browns fan growing up. Always enjoyed their logo. I thought their logo was always kind of neat, on the helmet. But it was coming here, again, the stadium, just the area, the Kansas City itself. Always enjoyed coming here. So coming here and knew a little bit about Lamar Hunt from his history, but coming here in 1989, I had known some of the players, got to know them, did a couple Pro Bowls in Cleveland, and there were some players that made the Pro Bowl that were over there, and got to know them a little bit during that week that we were there. I just always had a good feeling about Kansas City.
Yeah. And so you end up here, and all of a sudden you're here with Marty, and you're changing uniforms, and you're changing team allegiance, which is the team you grew up with, the Cleveland Browns, were your favorite team, and all of a sudden you're now with the Kansas City Chiefs, and it's
We had a really the coaching staff in 1989. We had Tony Dungy, Bruce Arians, Bill Cowher was on that coaching staff. Bill was actually with us in Cleveland on the coaching staff. Trying to think who else we might have had on that, but we had Al Saunders. We had a really good. There's only like 12 of them at the time, but Russ Ball, who's now in Green Bay, Dave Redding, Redman. We had it was a really good coaching staff. Darvin Wallace and Howard Mudd.
That's right.
Just a really good group of coaches and just a good group of people.
Yeah. What was your first interaction with Lamar Hunt?
My first, the day I arrived in Kansas City, Marty was here, Lamar was in the building, and Marty took me up to meet Lamar, and I just remember how kind he was, right off the get-go, and he made you feel at ease, and he was very humble, and took me up to a suite up there, and we were discussing, he was getting ready to leave to go back to Dallas, where he was from, and we're up in his suite, and he mentioned something about, where are you staying while you're here? Training camp was going to be starting in a few weeks, and we're going to be going to William Jewell. And Lamar said, well, where will you be staying? And at the time I said, well, until I find a place, I'll be across the street at the Adams Mark. And he referenced something about, well, you could just stay here. He goes, I'm leaving. And so I was kind of looking around, and I said,
Boy,
I appreciate that, Lamar.
This looks way better than my hotel room.
It was way better than my town I grew up in. It was like, well, and I said, Lamar, thank you very much, but I wouldn't feel comfortable here. And we had just met at that point, just a few minutes before that, and he was offering me to stay in the suite until training camp started. And I remember him mentioning, he said, I won't be back until training camp. So I politely declined, and he said, well, if you change your mind, just let security know, and we'll let you in. So that was my first real interaction with him. And had a couple opportunities to travel with Lamar. We did a planning trip over to Tokyo, and I met Lamar in Chicago, and we flew Japan Airlines from Chicago to Tokyo for a planning trip. It was a planning trip.
Oh, the planning trip before that. Okay,
Lamar was going over for press conferences, and I was going over with the logistics of the trip, from customs and buses and practice fields and locker rooms at the Tokyo Dome and the menu at the hotel and things like that. And so flew over with Lamar, and this was kind of cool. We land in Tokyo at Narita Airport, I think it was called, and the Tokyo Dome people, the production people that were putting it over, we met at the airport, and that evening, Billy Joel and Elton John were having a concert in the Tokyo Dome.
Yeah.
And so they had arranged it that we would go straight from the airport, and this is after flying like 18 hours. We went straight from the airport, once we went through customs. They took us to the dome, the Tokyo Dome, for this concert. And so we go up to a suite, and we were there with some NFL people and the other team. I think we were playing the Vikings, yeah, because we've been there twice. Vikings the first time, and Green Bay the second time. And so we're in the suite. It was very nice, and Lamar, doing the talking, and Lamar said something to me. He said, "Mike," he goes, "would you be interested in walking around and seeing?" He goes, "The concert's really nice, and I'm enjoying it, but would you be interested in walking around and let's go see the bowels of the Tokyo? Let's see how things work here." So we asked the Tokyo Dome people, and they said, "Yeah, absolutely." So off we go, and
here you are. Here's Billy Joel and Elton John playing, and you two are headed for the basement.
And we're heading down to where the food service, the delivery, the loading docks, and Lamar was very interested in how things are. He was looking around, wanting to see how things were maintained and cleaned, and I thought that was really interesting. And I remember that trip because I spent a lot of time with Lamar. I think he was there for like 3 or 4 days. But I remember we were just walking around that stadium, or the dome, the Tokyo Dome, and communication obviously was a little bit different and challenging. Right. But what I remembered him doing, he was able to communicate people with the Japanese people, even though the language wasn't totally perfect, but he was communicating in his way. And learned a lot from him in spending time with him, just because of his humbleness, his politeness, his kindness. He had a unique way of making everyone feel like they were the most important person he met that day. And he really did mean it. And I think if anyone in this organization or anyone that knew Lamar, if you ask them today, they'll always say how he was always just made you feel like you were the most important person he met that day.
Yeah, right. And the other thing about Lamar too, the NFL today, I don't know how it would have happened or what would have happened with expansion or whatever. Without Lamar Hunt, back in the days of founding the old AFL and getting with his Foolish Club, that whole group of guys who all wanted in on this action, but the NFL didn't want any of them in. And Lamar, as nice as he was not going to take no for an answer, and he was going to do his thing with professional football. And his impact on this game, because he was so low key, wasn't pompous, wasn't always out there, it was never about Lamar. I think people lose sight of the fact of how important he was to where this league is now as we sit here in front of their 4 Super Bowl trophies.
So Lamar, raised in Dallas, Texas, loved sports growing up. And quite simply, he watched the 1958 NFL championship game between the Baltimore Colts and New York Giants. And he was very interested in getting himself an NFL franchise. There were only 12 teams back then, and 10 were east of Mississippi River, 2 were out on the West Coast. And quite frankly, he asked the NFL about expansion, and they weren't interested in expanding. Did tell him the Chicago Cardinals might be for sale. So he did fly down to Miami, Florida to meet with ownership of the Chicago Cardinals to see if he could work out a way to purchase the team, to buy the team. Couldn't work out a deal, and he got back on his American Airlines flight. And in Lamar's words, it was like a light bulb came off in his head. He said, "I'm interested in owning a professional football team, but the NFL won't expand. The Chicago Cardinals aren't going to sell. So he said, I think I'm going to have to start a new football league. And he literally borrowed stationery from American Airlines on that flight and started writing down notes of what it would take to start a new football league. We have that document over here in our museum space in the Foolish Club. And he gets back to Dallas, and he found 7 other owners. And in 1960, at age 27, he launched this new football league called the American Football League.
27 years old.
And that league now is called the AFC. And so what happened was you had 2 professional football leagues, the American Football League and the NFL, okay? The NFL did expand, by the way. They added 2 teams. They actually took the Minnesota Vikings away from Lamar. They were one of his original AFL teams.
Because it's going to fill part of that Midwest map for him, right?
And they bailed out on Lamar right at the very last minute before he launched the league. They went ahead and joined the NFL. They did in 1961, a year later.
Yeah.
The Oakland Raiders actually took the Vikings' place. So what Lamar did then, he found 7 other owners and then started that new league. His team was in Dallas. They were called the Dallas Texans. It was a pretty good thing that he had going there. But what happened was the NFL did add another team in 1960, and they put him in Dallas and added the Dallas Cowboys.
Really to spite Lamar. I mean, they're trying to squelch this league. Okay,
Sure.
That's what they're trying to do.
Yeah.
The old guard.
It was competition.
Yeah, right. Absolutely.
They were competing for the players. They were competing for the coaches, the support staff. They were competing for the fans. And so after 3 seasons in Dallas, Lamar was going to need to relocate his franchise when he moved to Kansas City in 1963.
And why Kansas City? What happened to end up here from Dallas instead of maybe ending up in I don't know, Memphis or somewhere else?
There was interest from New Orleans, Atlanta, and Miami when H. Roe Bartle, who was the mayor of Kansas City at that time, found out that Lamar was looking to relocate this AFL Dallas Texans franchise and told Lamar if he comes to Kansas City, he'll triple his season ticket sales that he had down there in Dallas. So that's how Lamar ended up coming here.
Yeah, right. And H. Roe Bartle was also known as the Chief. They called him the Chief, and that's how the Chiefs basically got their nickname,
Off the mayor's nickname.
Yeah, right. That's incredible. And I just want folks just to think about this for 1 minute. What if the Chiefs had never come here? What if this city, and there are cities that are clamoring now for NFL teams, okay, like I said, Memphis and, San Antonio and, Nashville has the Titans, but there are cities that would love to have an NFL, Portland, Oregon, whatever. But just imagine if that hadn't happened to this city, how different this city would be without the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting.
It's pretty interesting.
So
it's probably for the Chiefs, it's pretty scary.
Lamar's American Football League was so much more advanced than the NFL at that time too. In year 1 in 1960, Lamar had a 2-point conversion, and the NFL didn't adopt a 2-point conversion until 1994. After the merger, which we'll get to in a minute, after the merger in 1970, Lamar was always petitioning the NFL to try and adopt this 2-point conversion, and they finally did in 1994. Lamar also had names on the backs of the jerseys in 1960 in year 1. He had colorful uniforms, wide open offenses. He had painted end zones, marching bands. It was entertaining the fans. And he was so much farther ahead than the NFL at that point. And then what happened was all through the 60s, you still had the AFL and the NFL. So college football players were being drafted by both teams. And
playing one league against the other, too, for money.
We have Fred Urbanus's Western Union Telegram. We have it on display over here where the 49ers saying we're going to be drafting you and the Dallas Texans were going to be drafting him. And so the players, Lamar was a wonderful, great business person. And he recognized if we could just figure out how to get these 2 leagues, the NFL and the AFL, to come together and merge, everybody would be better off.
Yes.
And so the problem with that was trying to get these 2 leagues to come together to merge.
You're dealing with egos now. Now you're dealing with not just a commissioner with an ego, but all of your original NFL owners are going, what do we want these upstarts in our league for?
And so what happened was Lamar and Tex Schramm met in Dallas. Tex Schramm was running the Dallas Cowboys, and they met in April of 1966 to initiate a conversation. There was some conversation before that, but this was the formation of what is it going to take to get these two leagues come together. A lot of negotiation, a lot of back and forth. The minor miracle out of that was 3 months later, on June 8, 1966, they did announce a merger. The AFL would become the AFC, the NFL would become the NFC, and then they would all just be under one umbrella of the NFL. That merger would start 4 years later in 1970.
Right.
But as a result of that merger, a couple things came out of it. One, there was no more separate college drafts. Starting in 1967, there was just one common draft. And the other thing, starting in 1967, the NFL and the AFL teams could play preseason games against each other. Okay? And then the other thing that came out of that was, after that 1966 season, they were going to play what was called an AFL-NFL World Championship game. And they were trying to figure out what they were going to call this game. In July of 1966, they were trying to figure out what they were going to call this game. And Lamar's wife, Norma, had just bought the children this little toy called a Super Ball. And we have one on display here. And that Super Ball was the inspiration that Lamar had when he mentioned to the other owner, or the other owners, this game we're going to play, this Super Bowl. And so for the first couple of years, it was referred to as the Super Bowl. It was officially renamed the Super Bowl 3 years later, and the third Super Bowl.
Right.
But it was referred to early on. And Lamar
It was called the AFL-NFL
for 2 years, yeah.
championship game for a couple of years.
And Lamar was never real proud of that name. Like, he thought it was kind of corny.
Yeah, right.
And so after the fourth Super Bowl, he recognized that it was being called Super Bowl IV, Super Bowl III. And he suggested, and we have the document in the Foolish Club area, where Lamar wrote a letter to the commissioner suggesting that they add Roman numerals. And
just to class it up a little bit.
In
right?
his words, and it's on that document, add a bit of class to our unclassy name.
Wow.
And so that, yeah. Now, the other interesting thing is, in August of 1970, Lamar Hunt found out that Vince Lombardi was very, very ill, the old Green Bay Packer coach. And we have the document in the Foolish Club section, but Lamar wrote a letter to the commissioner suggesting that they rename the Super Bowl trophy the Vince Lombardi Trophy. And if you think about that, this tells you a lot about Lamar's compassion. Mm-hmm. Okay, Super Bowl I, Lamar's Kansas City Chiefs got beat by the Green Bay Packers. Okay, and just 3 years later, Lamar's writing a very personal letter to the commissioner suggesting they rename the Super Bowl trophy the Vince Lombardi Trophy. And that right there will tell you Lamar's compassion for
Yeah,
things.
a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, for this. And then the original team, the original Chiefs, were playing Municipal Stadium, obviously, same place the Royals were playing at, or the Athletics were playing at that time, and then eventually the Royals. But then the concept of this sports complex is phenomenal. I drove across country. I didn't realize these two stadiums were the way they are. I drove across country in 1974, okay, from Philadelphia. And I see this exit on I-70, it says sports complex. And I'm going, sports complex? I said, oh, that's pretty, it piqued my interest. And then I got off, because I saw the Royal Stadium there, right, the K. I got off the exit there, and I went, oh my gosh, I pulled on, and here I am. The gates are open. Okay, I mean, you could just drive in here, no kid, because I didn't really then see. All of a sudden, then I see Arrowhead. I see another stadium behind you. I'm going, oh my God! So I drove down in the parking lot, and I have a picture at home, back from 1974, of the two stadiums from up on the overpass. I'd stopped and tried to take a picture of the two of them, and went in here and drove around. I said, what a great idea! And as I was driving away, I swear to God, because I was writing sort of I was writing like a little trip report. I was just journaling a little bit about my trip across country. And I said, hey, who knows, maybe someday I'll work here. I am not kidding. It's 1974. I didn't get here until 81. I didn't get here until, a few years later, but it did come to fruition, which is just sort of eerie. But the concept of putting this here or building a new stadium, where was that with Lamar as well?
Yeah, it's really what a vision.
Yeah.
that Lamar had. And gosh, going back to that time in the early 70s and when it was being built and then when it opened.
It was he and Ewing Kauffman had to get together, yeah.
So futuristic. There was nothing like it at all. And they've held up, for 50 years like this. And I remember the first time I saw the complex coming in off I-72. Same thing. I was just taken away from it. I was coming from Cleveland, where we had a stadium that was built in 1936.
Mistake by the lake. Come on now.
Where we
that was your municipal stadium too, right?
Municipal stadium.
Yeah,
we had
Cleveland,
snow coming in the windows from off Lake Erie, and
right. Set the river on fire.
We couldn't use a couple of the lockers, and when the wind was blowing from the northwest, because it went through the cracks in the window, and there was snow in some of the lockers.
I covered a game there.
Yeah,
I covered a game there. Yeah, sitting outside. The press box was outside.
Yeah.
It was a December game, and we were freezing. Yeah.
It was. This stadium was just phenomenal. Lamar he meant so much to professional football, the way we know it today, that in 1984 they actually renamed the AFC Championship Trophy the Lamar Hunt Trophy.
Yeah.
And we now have 5 of those trophies. And the first one that we, after the 2019 season, when we won the AFC Championship out here on our field, and that trophy was presented to the Hunt family, to Norma and the Hunt family out on that field. That was very emotional, because that was the first time that this franchise had been AFC champions. And to have Lamar's name on that trophy, as you can see this way, that was it just meant so much. And Lamar, as much as it means to us, for him, it meant for others. It was for the fans, the organization, the fans, the Chiefs fans. And he was always about not just his franchise, it was always about the league and the fans.
Yeah. The shield, as Herm Edwards used to refer to all the time. Protect the shield.
He always put the league's best interest above his own. And I know that here in our Hall of Honors, so when we have a home game against an AFL team, an original AFL team, for instance, the Buffalo Bills or the Raiders or the Broncos or the Chargers, we have replica AFL uniforms. And for that week, we will take one of our exhibits here and we will put in that AFL uniform. If, let's say we're playing the Broncos at home, we'll put that in for the week. And we have visiting fans come to our game to support their team, and it's really nice to see them come over and see their AFL uniform. And again, that's something that Lamar, he was always wanting everyone to have a great experience. So by doing that, we feel like we're doing a little bit of Lamar's, just taking care of not just our fans, but also the visiting team's fans too.
And he's really into the history of the NFL. Not just his AFL, but the NFL, and now the way it has grown, and a lot of it is because of Lamar Hunt. It's just
absolutely
incredible.
Yeah. He was the first AFL personnel that was inducted to the Pro Football Hall of Fame in Canton, Ohio in 1972.
Wow.
And again, he always was about others. He wanted to take care of the other people. He was so humble and so kind and so almost unassuming in some ways.
You would never know if you met him. Sitting in, with everybody else on an airplane in the back. He didn't fly first class. There's always about his sport. Norma was always trying to dress him up a little bit more, but Lamar never listened. He listened to her for all other things, but as far as all that's concerned, he was always a very humble man. I have my own story about Lamar and Norma. We were at Buck Buchanan's induction into Pro Football Hall of Fame in Canton, Ohio. And so the induction ceremony was over, and we're then doing some post-induction ceremony, interviews with Lamar and Norma and, Buck's wife and the whole thing. And so we're in there, and so we're packing up, getting ready to leave, and Lamar and Norma walked over. And I think I could see Norma behind Lamar going, ask him. And so he came over and he said, you guys were here today. This is wonderful. How are you getting back home? And I said, we've got to catch a plane in I don't know, we're at Pittsburgh. I think maybe Pittsburgh or Cleveland, one of the other. I think Cleveland maybe. Yeah, we have to run up and catch a plane. And so he goes, "Would you like to ride home with us?" And I looked at my photographer. I said, "What?" I said, "Gosh, Lamar," I said, that is over and above. I mean, you sure you have room? There's a lot of people who said, "Yeah, in fact, we're just flying back, the two of us." No, in fact, we're going back to Dallas, but we have another plane that is going to Kansas City, and I don't think there's hardly anyone on it. So if you two'd like to go, you go. We got on that plane, and I'm looking at my photographer. I'm just going, is this really happening? You know, and we flew back to downtown airport to let off the other passenger on the plane. But our car was parked at KCI at the time, right? Yeah. So we're figuring, okay, we can call one of the photogs from the station, go down and pick us up, we'll go to the end. The pilots go, "We'll take you to MCI. I said, "What?" Because I thought they were driving. You know, he said, no, we'll take you. They turned the plane around. They took off from downtown airport and did the hop to KCI and dropped us off. I was just, that's awesome. It's just one of those great stories. You just go, you know, you just talk about Lamar Hunt, and he had no reason to really do it. But I could see Norma back there saying, "Let them on the plane, it's empty," you know, the whole deal. And Norma was a driving force behind Lamar, right?
So gracious.
What a woman.
So
she
gracious,
was, yeah.
So kind. And again, just always made you feel like you were the most important person she met there. So gracious, so kind, so just very loving, and yeah, what a wonderful, wonderful human being.
Yeah, she was great. Okay, let's talk about some other things, and some other people that you've had to deal with here at Arrow. Not had to, but loved dealing with. Of course, we couldn't say anything but Marty Schottenheimer and what he meant to you.
Yeah, Marty. Like I said, I met Marty. He was an assistant coach in Cleveland when I met him, and well, you just talk about just someone who instilled confidence in you. I like to say Marty believed in me before I believed in myself. And I was a young guy back then, and he said, "I'd like you to come to Kansas City with me." And again, like I said, he believed in me before I ever believed in myself. And
yeah.
Very, what I liked about Marty was you always knew where you stood, and you could go to him and tell him how you feel. And I'll speak for, you know, Dave Kendall and Bud Epps, our athletic trainers, and Alan Wright and myself. You could go to Marty, tell him what you felt, what you thought, and you knew that he would listen. Now, he was stubborn on some things, and he may not agreed, but he would try to work with you on something, and if it could fit, he'd make it fit. And he let you do your job. And if you had things to talk to him about, you could always go visit with him.
Yeah.
Not that others didn't, but Marty was that way. Yeah.
And I know you weren't here when he was a player, but you grew up in Ohio, so Alliance, Ohio, and Len Dawson. Your thoughts about Len?
Yeah, Len was great. Obviously, we had that connection. You know, he played for the Cleveland Browns at one point. You know, and
Steelers.
So being and being from Alliance, Ohio. And he knew that I was with the Cleveland Browns, so we still had some connections there, that people that he had known back when he played and who was still there, and then other names. And so whenever I saw Len, he always that twinkle in his eye, those eyes of his. But we always talked about Cleveland. And real interesting story on Len. We were in Buffalo. And the night before the game, a friend of mine that I grew up with from elementary school lived just outside Buffalo, and he came over with his son. His son was probably about 8 or 10 years old, met me at the hotel and the night before, and we had dinner. And in the restaurant at the hotel, Len was in there, and Len was not too far from us, and I told Bill that was Len. And of course, when we were growing up, Len Dawson from the AFL and Alliance, how we were all very familiar with who he was. So I went to Len and I said, "Len, you got a minute that I can introduce you to my friend and his son?" And Len was so nice and spent 20 minutes with us talking, and that was Lynn. You know, he was.
Yeah, that was Leonard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Always enjoyed seeing him after a game and talking
Yeah.
to him, and yeah.
He always called me Francis. And I called him Leonard. Leonard? Francis? You know,
Yeah.
Francis? One
Yeah.
of those. I'll tell you another story. So I'm coming down here from Green Bay to take the job at Channel 4 here. And I talked to my mom and dad, hey, I got a really nice job, bigger market, they have more sports there, the whole thing, it's great. And so my mom was always interested. She'd go, well, who's on the other stations that you'll be competing against? So I talked about these guys. And I said, oh, yeah, one of the other guys is Len Dawson. And she goes, oh, so you probably won't be there very long, will you? I said, Mom, you have to have a little bit more confidence in me than that, you know?
He always made it a point to speak to you.
Yeah, always.
You know, he
He
always
wanted
made
to
a
know
point
who
to
you
come
were and where you were from, and
Yeah.
we related because I was from Pittsburgh, and it was just,
And always
he always called
so-
it Pittsburgh.
And so cool.
Yeah,
Always just.
he was
yeah.
Lenny the Cool.
Lenny cool. He never sweated.
No.
He was just, yeah.
All right, Derek Thomas. I know the nightmare he probably was about getting to the plane on time for your away trips.
Getting to the plane out. We're lucky we got him out on the field for game day. He was the last one in to get dressed, and if it wasn't for the last minute, he would never have made it out on the field. But we kind of carved out those last 60, 120 seconds for Derek, and he'd come flying in, and we'd get him into his uniform, and just always good to everybody. And always just, you know, he was very, very intelligent, and always enjoyed the conversations with him. You know, he was really knee deep into the Kennedy assassination.
Right. And his dad was a vet too. His dad was a pilot in Vietnam.
Yeah. And we actually have a shadow box over here where we honor both his father, Captain Robert Thomas, and himself, that some Chiefs personnel put together a few years ago on the 50th anniversary of his father being shot down on a mission in Vietnam. And interesting, Derek was 5 years old, I believe, when his father went shot down and was MIA. And the mission that his father was flying at that time was called Operation Linebacker. And you know, that puts goosebumps on your arms.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah,
it really
but Derek
does.
was great to work with. He was one of those guys where he just came in and immediately energy picked up.
Yeah. The other deal was too, no matter how mad you got at him, he just smiled.
Yeah.
That smile he had just,
Couldn't
stay at it very long.
Yeah, but he was great to work with from our end of it.
Yeah, what was the story about the shoulder pads?
Yeah, so he brought some shoulder pads from college, and so he wore them his rookie year and did very well with them. And so after that season, we sent him to a company called Power by Red L to ask him to remake the pads, but just kind of make them a little more up-to-date type thing. And so when we got them that off season, Derek looked at them and said, yeah, they're nice, but I think I'll keep wearing my old shoulder pads, which was fine. Some of the best fitting equipment's the one they think fits them, you know, in their head. So, but we'd carry him around, and Alan and I, we would have him on the workbench, and he'd come in occasionally and try them on. But he knew we had them. We took him on the road with us. We had him on the road trunk. Just, you know, we didn't push him into it. So that second year, I believe we were in Seattle, and I think Duran made an interception, and Duran Cherry made an interception, and they're taught to go find someone to go block. And I think Derek picked like the biggest Seattle Seahawks offensive lineman, and that lineman hit Derek so hard he went flying. Derek got knocked into next week, like we like to say. And so Derek's kind of on the ground collecting himself, and he comes over to Alan and myself and says, I think I'm ready for them new shoulder pads. I'm like, Derek, them new shoulder pads wouldn't have helped.
No, on that one. But at least you got him into
But he
the
was fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Joe Montana.
Joe, yeah, he was true pro, okay, true professional, and but a lot of fun. He knew when to have fun. He knew when to kid around. Knew when to pull jokes. But boy, when it came to focus, he was so focused. It was almost, I don't know, almost like a trance or something for him when he was playing. But a lot of fun. Like I said, just a true professional in every sense of the word, and good to everyone.
Yeah. And you know, what's amazing, the staff here, you're still here, you've been here since 1989, and a lot of staff, Alan Wright, and we talked about, Chris Shropshire, and all the people who have been here. people don't realize that a lot of times when you change head coaches or you change general managers, they want to clean house with everybody who has been involved with the past team and start anew. But you guys have really gone from coach to coach and GM to GM. How'd you maneuver that?
That's a good question. Alan's been with this franchise since 1984, I believe,
right.
And then Chris Shropshire, he I think we brought him in somewhere around 93 or 94, and I guess it's just a matter of just treating people, I guess, the right way, and there's probably some luck involved. Okay,
sure,
that happens. So, you're right. Things can change quickly.
Yeah, they can.
So
can't make mistakes either. You guys don't. I mean, it's like I talked about. It's like dotting I's and crossing T's. You guys, the Japan trip for one, and all the other, all the other things, all the hoops you have to jump through from week to week. I wouldn't want to change those guys that are down there doing that day to day. Yeah, because then a whole new crew has to learn it all over again.
Yeah, it's. Again, there's some luck involved to it, but also, if you just be neat, clean, organized, and try to just stay, find out how the head coach wants it done and go get it done. Yeah,
that's right. Now, when you brought out the white uniforms, I understand that we had a couple offensive linemen that didn't particularly like the white uniforms back in the day.
Yeah, they thought they looked like marshmallows. The offensive line didn't care for the
I know one very well.
Yeah.
Tim Grunhard, number 61, didn't like being wrapped in white.
They let us know their feelings on those things.
Let's talk about equipment before we're going to talk a little bit more about what we're doing. But let's talk about equipment and changes. The most critical change you've seen, the best change you've seen in equipment in your tenure.
Well, I think obviously the helmets now there's been a lot of research and development, and there's been a lot of smart people that have gotten involved, and so there's no helmet's going to prevent a concussion, but there are ways to help reduce the chances of concussions. And so the research and development into helmets and what's been going on to it is very important. And I think that's obviously the biggest change. A lot of material has changed, both under the shoulder pads and then also with the jerseys and pants, compared to what used to be worn.
The old tearaways and all that
and some of the old heavier cloth, and now with moisture wicking away and things like that you have. A lot more lightweight. Shoulder pads have obviously gotten a little smaller. It's streamlined for the... Derek was one of the first to really start wearing, Derek Thomas was one of the first to start really wearing a scaled down shoulder pad.
Right, something almost rounded the shoulders instead of, they used to stick straight out. Remember?
Almost similar to like a hockey pad.
Yeah.
So Derek was one of the first to start in that trend. So there's obviously a lot just in shoes, the way shoes are fitted now for position, and a lot of research and development. It's all for the good. The players have gotten bigger, they've gotten faster, they've gotten stronger. I think they're more protected now than probably they've ever been, but you've had to stay up with all that, and that's where all the vendors have come up with a lot of research and development to improve the equipment.
Coaching has changed too. I mean, don't use the helmet, don't use the crown of your head. The tackle in the old days are taught to spear. One guy would grab the ball carrier and hold him up, so another player come in and lower his helmet and try to try to injure the running back.
The rules have changed to protect themselves in a lot of the cases, and also the opponent that they're playing too, and their fellow teammates. Yeah.
Let me ask you your most memorable game. I know that's probably very difficult to.
So
after all the games,
you're talking about good or bad?
Both. Well, one of each.
So from one of
I know the bad one, but go ahead.
One of the more miserable nights we had was the October 4th, 1998 game against Seattle. It was a Sunday night game, and I don't know if you remember, there were a couple storms that were colliding here in Kansas City right around kickoff, and I remember Andre Bruce, our grounds crew person, came to me and said, "Hey, we've got some storms actually came to Alan and I and said, we got some storm. We're going to have some rain at kickoff. And
some rain.
Some rain, yeah. And I don't remember the number, but it was like 4 or 5 inches of rain came down in a very short period of time. And matter of fact, sadly, flash flooding happened down at the plaza, and some people had lost their lives from the flash flooding. And so it started, the rain started, and the field was obviously getting pretty wet. But what I remember, Chester McLaughlin, who, God rest his soul, he was not dressing that game, but he waited to come out. We got him some rain gear, and he waited to come out. And he comes out, and now it's raining, started the game, it's raining hard. And he comes out, and he comes up to me, he says, Mike, he goes, hey, down there by Jerome's locker, there's some water coming in from his locker. And I'm like, okay, yeah, there's water coming all around, but thanks, Chet. And so we go back. I had to go inside during the first quarter for some reason. I can't remember what I had to go in for. Probably dry towels, if I remember right. But
Probably.
I get in, and now that end of the locker room had water starting to go around. And I'm like, oh, geez. And within minutes, it just started. What happened was there was a drain line behind Jerome's locker,
right.
and the one little cap broke, and all this rain's coming off the concourse. It's rolling into the locker room. So at that point, I called operations and said, hey, we've got an issue in here. I know you guys are busy, but we got a real problem. And if you remember, in the second quarter, they stopped the game.
Yeah.
Because of the weather. It was like 4 or 5 minutes left. And so anyway, I'd gone to Marty on the sideline. I said, Coach, I got in his ear, and I said, we got a problem in the locker room. He goes, just tell me what to do. I said, okay. So when they stopped, he said, you guys are going to have to go somewhere in the locker room, because we had big machines in there trying to suck up the water. And so Chester came in, and he saw all the water that was in there, and it was leaking into the athletic training room. And he goes, Mike, when I came and told you, I swear it was just a little bit of water like that. He goes, if it would have been like this, I would have told you this was really bad. So that was a very long night. And I think
that was a night also, it was raining so hard, you actually had a river flowing down the stairs.
Yeah, it was
coming onto the stadium. Yeah. It was like, I remember the video of that.
Yeah, that was, but the field drained really well. If you remember, the weather had cleared in the second half, and the field actually drained. And we were playing Seattle. And it was a Sunday night game, and it was a mess, and it was a long night. But you know what? You just work through it.
Yeah, that's right. So, what about the most memorable on the good side?
I think for me, we went to Houston for a playoff game, and it was after we'd beat Pittsburgh here in a playoff game. We went down to Houston, and we were pretty much underdogs, I think. And
yeah, you were. You'd lost to them during the season.
Yeah,
well.
Big time, I think. And
yeah,
they had a pretty good record at that point. And the winner of that game was going to go on to the AFC Championship game in Buffalo. And we went down there and
took it to them
and beat them. Yeah, and it was that. I just remember what that really meant to the city and to the Chiefs fans. And that was a really. The Monday night game a couple years before that, where we played Buffalo on a Monday night game here, that was also a big turning point. So those two really, really stand out for me.
Yeah. That's Keith Cash throwing the ball up against Buddy Ryan's image on the sideline in the end zone, because he said he was going to take care of the Chiefs and we got no problem. And all that sort of thing. It never really works that way.
And then the Monday night game in Denver with Joe Montana and John Elway, that was
one of the greatest Monday night football games ever.
Yeah, that was pretty electric in that stadium. That place was rocking. Oh, it was always fun to go to Denver. Denver was always. We didn't fare very well, when we went to Denver, but golly, it was always good games.
Especially the old stadium, the old Erector Center.
Oh, yeah,
that thing was, that the whole stadium swayed. The press box used to sway.
Yeah.
That stadium was not built well, but they ended up building their new stadium.
It rocked. It was always a good atmosphere to go there.
Yeah, it was just incredible. You had a great honor, Jared Allen. Talking about Pro Football Hall of Fame, Jared Allen was just inducted in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Yeah. And he called you and asked you to come. Tell me that story.
Yeah. So when Jared played here, he was here for 4 years, and really, really good person. And so when he was inducted to the Pro Football, him and I had stayed in touch over the years. But when he got inducted, he asked me he invited me to attend. And And, Jared was just one of those guys that he always brought a lot of energy and good energy. Mm-hmm. And he was fun, And
he was fun.
He actually
had a little bit too much fun sometimes.
He actually enjoyed practice, And, practice
He loved being
is
around
practice.
the guys.
Yeah.
He loved being around the guys.
He was really, really good. And he brought his old Cadillac up to Canton with the horns, the accessory on the hood, and the pink Cadillac that he had. And he actually parked out front. He had stanchions around him, but he had it parked out front of his event center for his party that evening. And really proud of the person that he is. He's, he full faith in the Lord. His family, his wife, his 2 daughters. He's always had a good heart, and he's just he's a very good human being. And it was nice to be able to be there to see him. And his, you can Google it and hear his enshrinement speech. But I've heard a lot of them over the years. Yes, this was. I'm trying not to be biased, but it was really good and very Jared. Mm-hmm. It was very Jared, and but very, very good. So it was nice.
Yeah, his speech was great.
Yeah,
it was really good. The only other one I ever heard that was close was when Bradshaw went in and said, "Oh, I'd love to slide my hands between Mike Webster's legs one more time." Who was his center? And it just cracked everybody up in the whole stadium and play Scrabble. Let's talk about the Hall of Honor. How can people get in here? You said this is a private event space too for businesses that might want to have a business meeting here.
Yeah. So for the stadium, we have tours through the stadium.
Right.
We have public tours, private tours, and then we also have a lot of event space in the stadium. So you can contact the Kansas City Chiefs for event space. And then when you set up an event, one of the things that's an option, you could do a tour, would take you through the Hall of Honor, locker room, sideline. But for the public tours and the private tours, you go to the Chiefs website and you can book a tour. Mm-hmm. And you'll spend time in here and see what we have in the history of Lamar and the American Football League.
We're going to spend more than just a little time in here.
Yeah.
If you're going to do this and you want to do it right, you're going to spend some time in here.
And then on game day, this is actually open to the fans. So if you bought a ticket to the game, anyone can come in here during the course. We're on the second level, the concourse level here, and it's on the side of the stadium that doesn't face Royal Stadium. It's on the south side. And so when the gates open, you can come in here and view it then. And that was important to the Hunt family, that this space on game day wouldn't be a separate fee to come in and see. And Frank, if you look around here, there's a lot of really nice exhibits and a lot of nice artifacts.
Incredible.
We have our 1962 AFL Championship trophy, the third and final year that they played as the Dallas Texans, the 66 AFL Championship trophy, the 66 AFL Championship ring, the 1969 championship. We have our 4 Lombardi trophies.
Right behind us.
And we have the Lamar Hunt Foolish Club section, which is what they named themselves, the original owners. They were losing money, obviously, any upstart business, and the ownership group of the Oakland Raiders, Wayne Valley, was representing them. He mentioned to the fact that, boy, we are just a bunch of fools, and you might as well call us the Foolish Club. And Lamar, being very optimistic, he wrote Christmas cards out that year and signed them to the members of the Foolish Club. And it stuck. They became proud to be known as a bunch of fools. And if you Google Foolish Club, you can read their story. It's pretty interesting. So we actually have a section in the Hall of Honor called the Foolish Club, and it's pretty neat. Yeah.
And so for Mike Davidson, I'm sure you have been approached by other, being successful as you have been, not only with being premier equipment guy, but also with now the Hall of Honor stuff. I'm sure you've been approached by other cities and other NFL franchises to do something for them, but Mike stays here. What is it about Kansas City for you that, because you're an Ohio guy.
Yeah.
So
that's a good question, because I like to say that I came to Kansas City because of Marty Schottenheimer. And look, Marty was interested in getting me to follow him when he left here. But I like to say I came here because of Marty. I've stayed here because of the Hunt family. And it's truly an honor to, with Bob Moore and myself, to have our Hall of Honor. It's truly an honor to represent Lamar Hunt, Norma Hunt, Clark, Lamar Jr., Sharon, and Daniel, the Hunt family, to represent them and to share the history and legacy of Lamar Hunt and the American Football League and even this stadium that we have here. And it really, again, it's such an honor to be able to do that for the Hunt family.
Yeah, and Clark and you know they are carrying on the tradition.
Yes, they
now,
are,
right?
and they are carrying it on, and again they have, you know, the fiber of Lamar where wanting to take care of the fans and make this. You know, we've been here now since 1963. The franchise has been since 1960, and take this another, you know, 60, 50, how many years is that? I'm trying to add that up real quick.
It's been a while. Don't ask me about math.
I know,
okay?
yeah. But
I never got out of calculus class.
You know, we've got to this point. Now let's take it beyond here. You know, after all of us are gone.
Yeah,
you know,
sure,
and,
absolutely.
And so
because the league will continue to evolve as well.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just all kinds of different.
But it's truly an honor to come in the stadium and to be here in the Hall of Honor, to know that Lamar looks down on this, and it's never been about him, and he always wanted everyone else to enjoy what we have here and be able to share that story of him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can't thank you enough for taking some time. It's awesome.
Thank
for
you,
anybody who's a Chiefs fan, you're here on Arrowhead on game day, whatever. This is a can't miss. You know, you've tailgated. You've had enough tailgating for a while. Come on into the Hall of Honor and just you will be blown away. The place is just absolutely incredible.
Well, thank you. Thank you
congratulations
for the opportunity.
to you and our old friend Bob Moore, of course.
Yeah.
The two of you for really, you know, carrying on the legacy and the tradition of the Kansas City Chiefs. So.
Oh, thank you.
All right.
Good.
It's a good deal.
Thank you.
And that's another reason Mike is and the Hall of Honor is and the Chiefs are. There's just something about Kansas City.
There's Just Something About Kansas City is a registered 501c3 nonprofit organization with the mission of documenting the stories that have built our city to inspire and educate generations to come. Our work is being made possible by the generous support of local partners like you. You can help us share these stories by becoming a sponsor today. Visit somethingaboutKC.org to learn more.